AWS Julie. For today's video, we're continuing with our new series on needed AWS fundamentals to ensure you pass your AWS certification exams. Let's dive into the fundamentals of Amazon CloudWatch. For this lesson, I want to do a high-level overview of Amazon CloudWatch, and we will be diving deeper into the fundamentals of CloudWatch in later lessons. But for this fundamental series, I wanted to first add fundamentals for the core services in AWS. What is CloudWatch? Well, CloudWatch is a core service in AWS, and it is a support service for AWS that is used by almost all other AWS services, features, tools, especially for monitoring and operational management. And in a later lesson under monitoring, we will dive deeper, especially into observability. But for your exam, we need to understand the three parts of CloudWatch, which are metrics, logs, and events. CloudWatch collects metrics, monitors those metrics, and helps us to take actions based on those metrics. CloudWatch collects and manages our operational data in our AWS account, detailing how it performs, and also collects our log data. So the first part of CloudWatch we need to understand is metrics, collecting the metrics, monitoring the metrics, and also actions based on the metrics collected. Metrics are a collection of data of AWS resources and applications and can even be from on-premises sites too. The metrics are collected in a time-ordered structure, and CloudWatch automatically collects metrics from our AWS account relating to the AWS services, products, applications, and more that you are using and consuming. Examples of metrics are CPU utilization, disk space usage, network in, network out, and more. CloudWatch is a public service that gathers metrics inside AWS, inside on-premises, and we can also collect our own custom metrics too. But we do have to understand the difference between CloudWatch collecting metrics on AWS products by default and CloudWatch collecting custom metrics and metrics from on-premises. CloudWatch collects metrics inside AWS automatically by default, but some CloudWatch metrics are not collected by default, and we need a CloudWatch agent installed to collect those metrics. The second part of CloudWatch that we need to understand is CloudWatch logs. CloudWatch logs can collect, monitor, and create actions based on our log data. And again, if we have anything outside of AWS, or if your custom metrics need it, we can install the CloudWatch agent to collect the log data. The third part of CloudWatch is CloudWatch events. CloudWatch events can create an event to then perform an action when that event occurs. And that can be based on a service, on a schedule, or on an alarm. So how does that work? Well, alarms are created and linked to a specific metric, and we'll talk about metrics specifically in just a minute. But then depending on how we created the alarm, we can then take an action based on that alarm. There's also EventBridge, which is a serverless service that uses events to connect application components together. This helps you build scalable, event-driven applications, and it is a consistent way to ingest, filter, transform, and deliver events so that you can quickly build applications. So the way CloudWatch is designed is that it collects data from AWS services and ingests that data and manages that data as metrics. Based on the data, then we can use the data with alarms to take actions, like sending notifications, scaling up your compute environment when your load increases, and more. How does CloudWatch manage all of the different metrics collected? Well, it uses namespaces, and you may see a question regarding namespace on your certification exam. Each namespace contains data, and each different namespace holds different data. For example, all AWS data is contained inside a namespace named AWS/service. For Amazon EC2, it would be AWS/EC2. For Amazon S3, it would be AWS/S3, and so on. This particular namespace, starting with AWS/the service, is reserved for AWS only, but you can choose any other name for your namespace as long as it follows the naming of the namespace rules. For a website, we could create a namespace called the name of that website, and the default namespace for the CloudWatch agent is CW Agent, and you can specify a different namespace when you configure the agent if you want to. CloudWatch also has data points that are part of the metric. A data point is simply a measurement that is reported at a specific time. To further drill down and separate out data points for different measurements in the CloudWatch namespace, CloudWatch can also use dimensions. The dimension will add the name of the instance, so the instance ID, along with a value for that metric. So dimensions help CloudWatch to separate those collected data points in the same namespace metric. So using the metric's namespace, data points, and dimensions, we can get very granular with tracking our metrics. In a later lesson, we will look inside AWS/EC2 namespace and use a metric to search for our specific metric that we're tracking, which will probably be CPU utilization, so that we can ensure that our environment can scale, and then use the dimension to look for those data points for our particular Amazon EC2 instance. I think I want to stop this lesson here, and throughout this series, we will be diving deeper into CloudWatch and talk more about monitoring and observability. Plus, we will walk through creating an alarm and remediation for specific metrics in a later lesson. If you found this content useful, a like and a subscribe would mean a lot to me. It really helps me know what y'all like, and it gives me an indicator that I'm building useful content. Now, in the next lesson, we will cover another core AWS service, and that is AWS CloudTrail. Thanks so much for watching.